A biblical perspective on life, culture and current events. This is 2020 on Vision.
This is Andrew McLennan. A recent study has shown that compulsive sexual behaviour in partners includes out-of-control and compulsive sexual behaviours that the individual engages in while disregarding severe consequences for themselves, their partners, society and relationships. My special guest today has a PhD in pornography addiction, sexual addiction and betrayal trauma in intimate partners and is pursuing a postdoctoral degree in the same topic. It's my great pleasure to welcome Dr. Faye Seyed. Dr. Faye, welcome.
Thank you very much, Andrew. Thank you for having me.
Our pleasure, Dr. Faye. Now, Dr. Faye, this is an area where traditionally perhaps churches or faith groups or faith communities don't like to talk about, but you are a specialist in this area and it has very real and detrimental effects on the lives of individuals and also couples and beyond that, families. So tell us about this latest research and the findings of it.
Beautiful. Thank you very much for the opportunity. My research has been a qualitative research and it started from 2020 and concluded in 2023. And at that time, when I was looking for subjects or research subjects, when I advertised, I could only receive female betrayed partners and male who were engaging in compulsive sexual behavior. However, to date, I am seeing more and more female who also engage in compulsive sexual behavior. However, my research does not reflect that during 2020 and 2023. However, this research was conducted in Australia. It's one of its kind research. It's very unique, and it gave the female betrayed partners a platform to sit down and share their own experiences. And I found that once these individuals are discovering or find out about their male partners engaging in such secretive behavior, they endure betrayal trauma. And the betrayal trauma has impacts in their physicality, emotionality, in all aspects of life. But one aspect that was really interesting for me as a Christian therapist was the spiritual crisis that these individuals experienced and brought to the table. Almost 83% of betrayed partners expressed to me that they experienced some kind of a spiritual crisis. A spiritual crisis was when they doubted God's justice and they felt detached and angry at God or their higher power.
Yeah, it's awful, Doctor. Now, but I want to go back. I want to start from the beginning. So compulsive sexual behaviour. I mean, everyone has some form of sex drive. So can you define for our listeners what is compulsive sexual behaviour as opposed to what we would call a healthy sex drive?
So a healthy sex drive is something, that individuals are engaging in. They are not obsessed about it. They don't have powerlessness over it, and it does not have detrimental consequences. Versus compulsive sexual behavior is identical to any other addiction, identical to heroin addiction. The individuals have to engage in those out-of-control behaviors, not because they like sex too much, it's because they crave sex too much. Just like a heroin addict who doesn't like the heroin but is craving it. And the other difference between healthy sexual behavior and compulsive sexual behavior is compulsive sexual behavior causes these individuals to engage in risky behavior, and they do not, it doesn't concern them about the consequences that are going to be impacting themselves or other people in their lives.
So let's just stop again. So, and just for the sake of our listeners, what is risky behavior? How do you define risky behavior?
Risky behavior, for example, is when majority of these people are telling me, I had such urge that I had to stop and masturbate in the car. I was in my office at work and I knew that this is risky, but I had to watch pornography and masturbate. I had to engage with people online when I knew very well I've got a wife waiting for me in the other room. These are risky, or they have risky sexual encounters, unprotected sex, unplanned pregnancies, all these type of risky behaviors that these individuals engage in. But sexual addiction, compulsive sexual behavior is on a spectrum. All the individuals who engage in such behaviors have got different patterns of behaviors. Some people have got secretive, compulsive pornography use and masturbation. Some people use that, plus they engage with other people. Everybody is different. What these individuals share in common is the out of control and powerlessness over lust and their own urges and desires, and that their behaviors have got severe consequences for themselves and other people around them.
Yeah, okay. Gee, this is quite heavy stuff, Doctor, but I'm glad you did your PhD in it. Out of interest, and I'm going to ask you what those detrimental impacts are, but why did you choose to study or do a PhD in this area?
Good question. I was, again, this is a very, very touchy topic, but I was born in Middle East, and I lived there until my late teen years. And I could actually see in my own family system, I could see such individuals. And at that time, we didn't have this name for it. And they were called womanizers, cheaters. But I could see majority of these people were really, really good, honorable men. They had good jobs. They really, really were good-hearted men. However, they could not stop such behaviors. So moving to Australia later on, after obviously being in Sweden for so many years, I moved to Australia and I was in my practice, and a patient who was referred to me by my GP friend came to me and said, would you be able to see my wife? She's gone crazy. And I said, why? Well, she found out that I've got sex addiction. And I said, what is sex addiction? This man was American, and he had brought the terminology with him to Australia. So he introduced the sexual addiction to me. And when I met with his wife, she displayed what I called back then, because I was naive and uneducated, as craziness. She was screaming and shouting. She was punching him in the session. In 1 minute, she was depressed and quiet. Another minute, she was... And I could not get my head around it. What was wrong with this woman? However, it just opened the door to research. So I started a research with another professor, and the more I researched, the more I found out what I thought was craziness was nothing but pure PTSD and trauma responses, because she had found out what he was doing in secret. And that has started my journey. And today, I must say, working with these individuals and their partners is only a blessing and a pleasure, because these people are beautiful. They just need help. They are stuck in bondage and they just need help. And the stigma in society, the taboo in the society, the embarrassment is not helping them to seek the right help and the support, because majority of these individuals are recoverable very, very easily with the right help.
Well, Dr. Seyed, I'm glad that you have stepped into that space, and it sounds like you are helping a lot of people. So that's a really interesting story too. So let's go back. So what are the detrimental effects and impacts, firstly, on the individual engaged in this risky behaviour or this compulsive sexual behaviour? How does it impact those individuals before their partners are impacted?
These individuals, because they always have got some form of, they suffer from chemical brain imbalance. And I have actually noted that in one of my books. We are still early days. We don't know whether the chemical imbalance in their brains at an early age compel them to actually engage in sexual behavior as a way to balance the imbalanced chemicals in the brain, or whether engaging in such behaviors is causing them to have brain chemical imbalance. When these individuals are acting out, they've got oversurges of dopamine in their brain. And when there is too much dopamine in the brain, what dopamine does, it just causes malfunctioning of the prefrontal cortex, which means these individuals are suffering from a good memory. They are always angry, or they always give silent treatment to their partner. They can't perform in their work really well. Academically, they can't perform very well. They are present but not emotionally available. They are numb individuals. So very, very easily you can find out if somebody has got some issues or not. When you interview their partners, the first complaint is, my husband or my partner is not intimate. He either is really hypersexual in bed that doesn't feel honorable, but for most people it goes the other way. These individuals cannot perform in bed. They will be not able to perform with real partner. They either have premature ejaculation or the inability to perform at all. Why? Because their brain is only looking for hyperarousal through novelty, through connecting with other people online to get excited, or through pornography.
Yeah.
So
I get it. So that's the detrimental effect on them. So let's talk about their partners. You've already mentioned PTSD, the evidence of typical trauma impacts. What other negative impacts are there on the partners? In fact, let's talk about the spiritual impact you mentioned earlier.
Yes. So in my research, as I said, apart from physical impact, emotional impact, sexual impact, the impact on outlook on life, and I found that the spiritual impact being very, very significant. 83% of my female betrayed partners, they all expressed having a spiritual crisis. My female partners in my research, they were from a very, very wide demographic. I had Australians, I had Egyptian Australians, I had Afghani Australians, I had Chinese Australians, and I had 75% were Christian, and I had agnostics, I had atheists, and I had Muslims. Although I had this wide demographic, 83% said they were angry at God and they felt detached from God. And most of them, they kept asking, if there is a God, where is the justice? The Christian ladies, they would complain and say, initially I was called towards God because I've been faithful. I have served church. Why did God let me down? Something that was very intriguing that I found was the atheist and agnostic female partners. They were very, very angry at God. And my question was, but you don't believe in a God. How come you're angry? And then when I researched about it, I found that, again, any suffering in life and any misfortune, we human beings, whether we believe in God or not, we immediately go and blame it on God or God entity. And I thought that's really, really a good topic for somebody to do the research on later on. Another finding about the spirituality was majority of female partners moved away from God, and they told me, not only my partner, my husband has betrayed me, God has betrayed me too, because he did not reveal him to me sooner. Why would I suffer? God is an accomplice with my husband. So I saw them viewing their partners as an extension of God, and now because they blame the partner, they blame God. And then, on top of that, if they didn't receive the right support, which majority didn't receive the right support from church community, now the pastors, now the ministers were also blamed and accomplices because they thought, well, the church and the pastors are also giving us a cold shoulder, they are not taking care of us, and they didn't want to have anything to do with church initially.
Yeah. Dr. Faye, I could talk to you about this all day. This is really interesting, and I think it's going to really help a lot of people. But we do have to wrap it up now, Dr. Seyed. But can I ask, if someone wants to reach out to you, that if this conversation has really touched someone's heart today, how can they reach out to you? How can they best contact you?
And so I'm the director of House of Hope Counselling and Psychotherapy Centre.
House of Hope Counselling and Psychotherapy Centre, yep. And that's based in Brisbane?
In Brisbane, yes, and they can contact us.
Yeah, so House of Hope Counselling and Psychotherapy. Google that. Dr. Seyed, I want to thank you so much for joining us on 2020 today.
Thank you very, very much, and have a beautiful afternoon, Andrew. Thank you for having me.
Thanks for taking time to listen to this audio on demand from Vision Christian Media. To find out more about us, go to vision.org.au.